I always thought Christmas had a sound. Not the jingling bells or carols on the radio. No. For me, it was the sound of my family arriving. The slam of a car door. Children's boots thudding against my porch. Laughter rising up the staircase. Coats tossed over the banister. My kitchen filling with too many voices and too little space. For 42 years that was my December. And then, last year happened. I still remember the moment the silence became louder than all the joy I used to know. It was a Tuesday morning in early December, cold enough that frost clung to my window frames like lace. I was sitting at the table with my knitting, expecting a call from my son, Daniel. He always phoned me around that time to finalize Christmas plans. Even after he married Lydia, he kept the tradition. He knew how much it mattered to me. But that morning my phone buzzed with a different name. Lydia. I frowned. She never called unless she wanted something. Usually money, childcare, or the kind of advice she pretended to despise but always depended on. I answered anyway. Lydia? Everything all right? Her voice came bright and sugary like she'd practiced it. Oh Mom. Yes, everything's great. I actually wanted to talk to you about Christmas plans. My stomach tightened. Something was already wrong. Her tone was too cheerful, too prepared. Oh. I said carefully. What about them? Pause. A tiny inhale. Then the words that would carve a permanent scar across my December. Daniel and I decided we're hosting Christmas this year, and it might be best if you didn't come. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. It was like someone had pulled the floor from beneath me and I was just hanging there, waiting to fall. You didn't catch that. My voice cracked. What do you mean I shouldn't come? She laughed nervously. Well, the thing is, we're trying something new this year. A more modern Christmas. Less stress, fewer people, less traditional chaos. She stretched the word traditional like it was something dirty. I'm not people. I'm family, I said quietly. Oh, of course. It's just, well, you know how you get overwhelmed lately. And you're still recovering from that fall. We figured you'd prefer a peaceful day. Peaceful. That was her word for alone. I never said that, I whispered. Well, she continued, voice brisker now. We've already told the kids and Daniel's siblings. They're all on board. So, this is what's happening. Like that. An execution without a trial. I sat frozen, staring at the frost on the window. Wherever snowflakes touched glass, they melted into tiny tears. Lydia, I said slowly, I've hosted Christmas for our family longer than you've been alive. I know, she said too quickly, too brightly. And that's why you deserve to rest this year. Enjoy some quiet time. Maybe read a book or watch a movie. We'll FaceTime you. Her words stabbed deeper than if she'd simply told the truth. I don't want you there. You are an inconvenience. You don't fit the image I want to present. And the worst part? I recognized her tone. The same one she used when she dismissed waiters, ignored invitations, or corrected people in front of others. She wasn't asking. She wasn't worried about me. She was eliminating me. I understand, I finally said. And I did. Not the excuse but the intention. Oh good, she chirped, relieved. We're still family, of course. We love you. We just want a different vibe this year. A different vibe. She wanted a Christmas without me so she could shine. She wanted the spotlight of hosting, the credit, the compliments. She wanted to be the queen of the holiday, and apparently queens don't like sharing their thrones. When she hung up, the house felt colder. The heating hummed, the kettle clicked off, but everything sounded distant, like I was listening from underwater. I sat alone in my kitchen, surrounded by ornaments I'd unpacked for the celebration I was no longer invited to. And that's when it hit me, she didn't just cancel my Christmas. She erased me from it. But people like Lydia forget something important. You don't get rid of a mother so easily. And you certainly don't get rid of a woman who's survived more winters than you've lived years. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to do something much, much worse. I was going to wait. And when the time came, she would finally understand the one truth she never saw coming. The older you get, the quieter your power becomes. But it never disappears. I didn't plan anything at first. Not revenge, not confrontation, not even an argument. I simply went silent. Sometimes silence is more powerful than any accusation. It makes people reveal themselves. But Lydia was too self-absorbed to notice my quiet. Daniel, however, he noticed. 3 days after her call, he showed up unannounced. I was in the front garden trimming the frostbitten roses when I saw his car rolling slowly down the street. His headlights cut through the pale winter morning, and the engine rattled the way it always did when he was nervous. The car needed service, but he kept putting it off. He parked crookedly like he rushed the decision. When he stepped out, he didn't look like himself. His hands were shoved deep into his coat pockets, shoulders raised against the cold, face tense. Mom, he said, voice low, eyes heavy with guilt. Daniel. I stood, brushing cold soil from my gloves. He swallowed. You haven't responded in the group chat. But so that's when it became public. I raised an eyebrow. What group chat? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Lydia hadn't just disinvited me, she'd made sure everyone knew. And they'd discussed it. Without me. Daniel's eyes darted to the house behind me as if he expected Lydia to burst out of the front door and scold him for being here. I didn't know she called you, he muttered. I found out afterwards. I said nothing. I let him feel the weight of that admission. He sighed, breath fogging in the cold. Mom, you know how Lydia gets when she's stressed. She wanted to host this year. She wanted to prove she could do it. You mean prove she could replace me? His eyes snapped to mine, wounded. No, Mom, that's not. She just wants to make her own traditions. At my expense? He ran a hand over his face, embarrassed. You know she didn't mean it like that. Yes, I said quietly. She did. Silence settled between us. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that reveals truth. I can talk to her, he said finally. I can fix this. You can't fix what she meant to do, I replied. You can only cover it. And that's not the same. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Mom, please don't stay angry. There was. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I'm on your side. Just don't make this harder for me. I looked past him to the street. Neighbors had begun decorating their houses. Garlands draped over fences, inflatables bobbing in the breeze, windows glowing warm with lights. Christmas everywhere. Except where it mattered. When is the party? I asked, even though I already knew. He looked relieved that I was finally cooperating. Christmas Eve, 5 p.m. It'll be small. Just family. Family. The same word Lydia twisted like a knife. And you're all right with your mother being alone on Christmas? I said, my tone light, too light. He winced. I don't want that. But Lydia said you'd prefer. Stop. I cut him off gently. Don't repeat her script. He blinked. Script. Yes. The things she tells you to say so you both feel less guilty. He flushed crimson. Hit the mark. I'll drop by in the morning, he said quickly, grasping at something righteous. Before everyone comes. We can have breakfast. Just us. I almost laughed. A consolation prize. That's sweet, I said. But unnecessary. His brows furrowed. Mom. I'm not angry. That confused him. Daniel always expected an emotional reaction from me because he remembered the mother who used to cry whenever she felt overlooked, forgotten, disrespected. But that woman died a long time ago. Lydia just hadn't realized it yet. Mom, please don't do anything dramatic, he warned. I smiled faintly. I won't. But he didn't understand. Sometimes drama isn't loud. Sometimes it's silent. Precise. Inevitable. He left a few minutes later, glancing back twice. He knew something was wrong but couldn't name it. When he was gone, the street returned to its winter stillness. I stood by my roses, pruning slowly, letting the cold seep through my gloves. They thought they'd excluded me. But exclusion is a weapon that always comes back sharpened. I didn't need to ask anyone for details. I knew Lydia. She wasn't hosting some small gathering. She was hosting a spectacle. Her Christmas reign. A performance designed to make her look like the perfect matriarch. Polished, poised, adored. And I was the inconvenient reminder that she wasn't. But here's the thing about inconvenient reminders. They always show up. Especially when you try to bury them. That evening I opened my old oak cabinet and pulled out the red velvet box I hadn't touched in years. Not since Daniel's wedding. Inside was something Lydia desperately envied. Something symbolic. Something powerful. A small smile touched my lips. Let her have her Christmas. I'd take everything else. The night before Christmas always used to be the loudest night of my year. Wrapping paper everywhere, the smell of spices lingering in the kitchen, Daniel running around with tape stuck to his elbows, the grandchildren sneaking cookies behind the tree. But this year, my house sounded like a church after a funeral, hollow, too clean, too quiet. I wasn't used to it. And that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. After Daniel's visit, the group chat suddenly came alive. I wasn't in it, but I could imagine the tone. The side conversations. The private meanings behind the pleasant emojis. Lydia's digital fingerprints were all over it. She used the same playbook every time she wanted sympathy. Rewrite the story. Soften her cruelty. Paint herself as the victim. By nightfall, I knew the narrative circulating in the family was this. Mom insisted she wanted a quiet Christmas this year. We're respecting her wishes. Convenient. Soft. Clean. But lies are like cheap ornaments. They crack easily. And cracks make way for light. Around 5 p.m. I received my first call. Daniel's sister, Emily. She whispered the entire conversation even though she was alone in her bedroom, the way people do when they're afraid of being overheard by the truth. Mom, did you really tell Lydia you'd rather stay home this year? I smiled into the phone. Is that what she said? She implied it. Did Daniel tell you that? No. Who did? She fell silent. And silence is often just guilt with a heartbeat. I knew something was off, she whispered. Lydia has been different lately. Lydia had always been different. They were just finally noticing the rot beneath the glitter. Emily continued, she's posting updates in the group chat about the decorations, the catering, the matching pajamas. She even sent a poll about what her guests want for dessert. Her guests. Not family. Not our loved ones. Her guests. Meaning, people invited to admire her. Emily exhaled shakily. Mom, I'm sorry. You should be there. I know, I answered simply. There was nothing else to say. He sniffed. I'll talk to Daniel. No. Don't. Why? Because you'll only give them the satisfaction of believing they were right. There was a pause. Then Emily said the one thing I needed to hear. Mom, whatever you're planning, just don't hurt yourself. I smiled. Honey, when have I ever hurt myself by telling the truth? She didn't answer. Around 7:30 p.m. my doorbell rang. When I opened it, my 12-year-old grandson Liam stood on the porch wearing a hoodie and holding a plastic bag full of candy canes. His breath puffed out in white clouds. Mom doesn't know I came, he whispered. I stepped aside immediately. Come in before you freeze. He toed off his snow-dusted shoes and followed me into the living room. He looked around, eyes softening when he saw the tree, decorated the same way it had been every year since before he was born. Grandma, he mumbled, you're still having Christmas, right? I knelt to his level. Of course I am. His shoulders relaxed. He sat on the couch, pulling a crumpled envelope from his pocket. I wanted to give you this, before tomorrow. I made it at school. It was a Christmas card, hand-drawn, messy, beautiful. Inside it said, Christmas isn't Christmas without you. Something in my chest cracked open, a wound and a warmth at the same time. I hugged him. Thank you, sweetheart. Then he whispered the words I had been waiting for without knowing it. Grandma. Mom said she didn't invite you because you'd make the photos look old. He looked up at me, confusion clouding his big brown eyes. She said she wants the house to look fresh and modern this year, so she only invited the younger generation. She said you wouldn't fit the aesthetic. Aesthetic. Not family. Not love. Not tradition. Aesthetic. My blood cooled so fast it felt like ice. Lydia hadn't excluded me quietly. She'd done it publicly. With vanity. With arrogance. With performance. And now the truth was in my living room, spoken by a child who didn't know he was carrying a torch into a powder keg. I brushed his hair gently. Did your father say that too? No, Liam said firmly. Dad got angry. He said it was disrespectful. They fought about it. My eyebrows lifted. Fought. He nodded. Dad said, you don't get to erase my mother. Mom cried and said he wasn't supporting her. But there was the first crack in Lydia's facade. A hairline fracture, but big enough for me to slip a hand through and pull. Does your mom know you're here? I asked. He shook his head. Good, I whispered. Because this wasn't her moment. It was mine. I gave him a kiss on the head. Go on home. And tell your father to check his email tonight. Why? Because I'm sending him something important. When he left, I went to the kitchen table and removed the red velvet box from the drawer. Inside were old photos from decades of Christmas celebrations. Me holding Daniel at age 2, me cooking a feast with flour on my cheek, the kids unwrapping gifts under the old tree, family laughter filling my dining room. I poured all of them onto the table like a deck of memories. Lydia thought I was irrelevant. He thought I was expendable. She thought she could erase 4 decades of history because my hair turned silver and my hands shook when I sewed. But erasing someone only works when no evidence remains. And I had evidence. Stacks of it. I spread them out, arranged by year, then photographed them, every single image. Then I opened an email draft to Daniel and typed, before you celebrate tomorrow, I want you to remember what you're celebrating, and who built it. I attached all the photos. 42 years of Christmases. 42 years of love. 42 years of a mother who never once asked for anything in return. I wasn't sending it to guilt him. I was sending it to wake him. Because guilt fades. Memory does not. And memory, when wielded properly, is sharper than any revenge. I clicked send. The clock on the oven read 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes until Christmas. 2 minutes until everything would shift. As midnight approached, the house hummed with tension. The wind picked up outside, shaking the old wooden beams. Somewhere in the neighborhood a dog barked. Snow began to fall in slow, heavy flakes, the kind that mute the world. I stood by the window, watching the street disappear beneath white. Storm was coming. Not outside. Inside the family. And I was done being quiet. I whispered softly to myself, not as a promise but as a prophecy. Tomorrow, she learns who she underestimated. Christmas morning arrived with a sky the color of smoke, heavy, low, ready to break. I woke before dawn not because I was excited, but because my body had learned to expect noise and movement on this day. For decades, Christmas morning meant Daniel shaking me awake like a puppy, insisting presents couldn't wait another minute. But today, silence. Not soft silence but the kind that presses on your chest like grief. I made tea though it tasted like nothing. I turned on the radio though the music felt like static. By 9 a.m. I'd convinced myself I wasn't going to check my phone. By 9:04 I checked it anyway. There was a single message from Daniel. "Mom, can we talk? I saw the photos. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much she was trying to erase. I'll come by before the party. I need to see you." A small spark warmed somewhere in my ribcage. I remembered. Memory. That was always my weapon. But the warmth faded as quickly as it came because I knew something Daniel didn't. Sorry doesn't undo betrayal. Confirms it. Around noon Lydia's parade started. My phone buzzed with ding after ding. Not from messages but from social media updates. She had begun posting photos of her Christmas. I didn't follow her but Emily did. And she forwarded every post with commentary ranging from, "Mom, this is insane," to, "I swear she is doing this to provoke you." The first photo, Lydia in matching pajamas with the kids, holding a tray of hot chocolate, smiling like a woman who had just won a court case. Caption. Creating new traditions with my family snowflake sparkles simplicity. Elegance. Exactly the kind of Christmas I dreamed of. I stared at the word youth until it blurred. The second photo, her in front of a Christmas tree dripping in gold. Nothing like the tree I used to decorate with ornaments made by the kids' tiny hands. Caption. Out with the old, in with the new. So bold. So careless. She didn't realize she was building a noose out of her own captions. The third photo, the dining table. Long, dramatic set for 15 people complete with place cards. Every name in the family. Except mine. She didn't bother hiding it. Her comment under it. Hosting is for those with energy and vision. Leave the stress to the next generation. Next generation. I could practically hear her voice dripping with condescension. Emily sent another message. "Mom, she really thinks she's the matriarch." I typed back only one sentence. "Let her think that for now." He came at 2:17 p.m. I know the exact time because he knocked like a man begging to be forgiven. I opened the door slowly. His eyes were red. Not from crying, from shame. "Mom," he said, voice low, I saw everything. All the photos. All the years you hosted. I didn't realize how much she was taking from you." I let him inside without answering. Once he stepped into the living room, he paused, eyes scanning the familiar decorations. The old wooden angel, the triangular tree skirt I'd quilted myself, the stockings I had sewn when each grandchild was born. He wiped his face. "I forgot," he whispered. "No," I corrected gently, "you allowed yourself to forget. That difference mattered." He sat on the couch as if he were afraid to break something. "I confronted Lydia," he admitted quietly. "We argued for hours last night. She screamed that hosting was her moment, that she deserved to create her own image, that you'd overshadow her." I raised an eyebrow. "Me?" She said, "People always look at you first. That you have presence." He looked at me meaningfully. "She said you make her feel insignificant." But there was the truth behind the cruelty. Lydia wanted a Christmas where no one compared her to me. Where she wasn't second choice. Where she wasn't measured against decades of warmth she couldn't mimic. She wasn't afraid of me attending Christmas. She was afraid of being seen beside me. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I told her disinviting you was wrong. That it was disrespectful. That she crossed a line." "And what did she say?" I asked calmly. He hesitated. "That was enough. She said," he whispered, "that if you came you'd ruin her vision. And she refused to add another seat." I almost laughed. Imagine being so small you think excluding an old woman makes you grand. I stood smoothing my sweater. "Daniel," I said softly, "I'm not angry with you." He looked up sharply. "You're not?" "No," I repeated. "I'm disappointed. Deeply. But not angry." Relief washed over him like oxygen. Poor boy. He didn't realize yet that disappointment is far more lethal than anger. Anger burns. Disappointment freezes. Anger passes. Disappointment stays. He stood to embrace me, but I stepped back a fraction of an inch. Subtle, almost invisible. But he felt it. Oh, he felt it. That small withdrawal hit him harder than a slap. He lowered his arms slowly. "Mom," he murmured, voice cracking. "Go," I said. "Your guests will arrive soon." He swallowed hard. "Will you be all right?" "I always am." He lingered, guilt soaking him like rain, but eventually he turned and walked to the door. Before he left, I called out softly, "Daniel." He looked back. "This is the last Christmas you will ever spend without me," I said, voice steady as stone. "One way or another." His breath hitched. He didn't know if it was a promise or a threat. The answer was simple. It was both. At 4:03 p.m., when the sun was slipping away, my phone lit up again. A text from Lydia. "Hi. Just wanted to remind you we're keeping things small today. Hope you enjoy your quiet evening. Merry Christmas." Quiet evening. It felt like she'd spit on decades of memory. No invitation. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a neat little bow wrapped around cruelty. I stared at the message so long the letter seemed to tremble. Then I set my phone down. And I reached for the red velvet box again. In it was the object Lydia hated most. A small gold brooch shaped like a star. It had been Daniel's grandmother's, passed down to me. A symbol of the matriarch. A symbol Lydia desperately wanted. And the one thing she could never have. Not because I withheld it, but because she had never earned it. I pinned it to my sweater. And the weight of it grounded me. Not heavy. Steady. A reminder that the crown Lydia wanted to wear was not bought with gold or photos or matching pajamas. It was earned with years. With tears. With sacrifice. With memory. At 4:45 p.m. something happened that changed everything. A knock. Not frantic. Not hesitant. Firm. Steady. Measured. I opened the door expecting Emily, maybe even one of the grandkids. But the person standing there wasn't family at all. It was someone Lydia would never expect. Someone who owed me a favor. Someone who knew exactly what kind of woman she was. And when he smiled at me in the doorway, shaking snow from his coat, he said the words that marked the beginning of Lydia's undoing. "Are you ready?" I smiled back. "Oh yes," I whispered. "I've been ready since the moment she erased me." Christmas Day wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And Lydia's beautiful, perfect holiday? It was about to crack right down the middle. I sat there in my silent living room as the leftover scent of pine and cinnamon clung stubbornly to the air. My tree was still lit. I had refused to turn it off even after spending Christmas Eve and Christmas Day alone. It felt like defiance. It felt like survival. Snow tapped calmly against the window as if nothing monumental had happened, as if my daughter-in-law hadn't just orchestrated my erasure from the family's biggest celebration of the year. For weeks, the memory replayed itself with painfully sharp clarity. How she had said, "It's just too much for you, Mom. You know how easily you get overwhelmed." How everyone else, my son, my grandchildren, even my sister, had followed her lead like she was Moses parting the Red Sea. How the invitation had somehow failed to reach me. And how I discovered, purely by accident, that I wasn't invited at all. No, they hadn't forgotten me. They had excluded me. But the thing about getting older is this. People assume you're soft. They assume you won't push back. They assume that the dimming of your strength means the dimming of your mind. They have no idea how wrong they are. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I simply watched. And waited. 2 days after Christmas my phone rang. My son Daniel. I didn't answer. Then my granddaughter. Then my sister. Finally, the one I had been waiting for, my daughter-in-law Lydia. She didn't call. She messaged. "Lydia, hi Mom, hope you're well. We didn't see you at Christmas, we were worried. Everything okay?" Why? A lie so smooth it gleamed. I typed one reply. "Me, lovely. Thank you. Nothing else." The moment I hit send I leaned back and let silence become my weapon. Because silence, when used sparingly, becomes a mirror. And people hate mirrors when they know they've done something ugly. The next day my doorbell rang. I didn't rush. I moved at my own pace, taking my time, letting her stand out there in the cold. When I finally opened the door, Lydia was on the porch wearing a forced smile and overpriced coat. "Mom, you didn't answer your calls. We were so worried." I just looked at her. The kind of look that makes a grown woman rethink her entire life. "Why are you here, Lydia?" I asked, voice steady. She blinked too quickly. Guilt had a way of thinning her confidence. "Oh, we just wanted to check on you. You know, after you didn't show up." "I wasn't invited," I said quietly. Her smile collapsed. "Well," she stuttered, I thought Daniel was going to. Don't, I said. Don't start with I thought. You planned the whole thing. You controlled the guest list. And you made sure I wasn't on it. Her lips parted, shock plastered across her face, but not the innocent kind. No, this was the oh God she knows kind. I didn't mean it's just, she tried. You didn't want me there, I finished for her. The truth lay between us like an open wound. I waited for her to deny it. He didn't. Instead she exhaled shakily. You judge me, she said. You always do. You sit there in your quiet way like you can see through me. I raised an eyebrow. Can't I? Her chin trembled. Everything I do feels wrong in your eyes. That is a feeling you created for yourself, Lydia, I said. It's not something I handed you. She swallowed, eyes glistening. Not with remorse but with self-pity. I only wanted a Christmas that felt like mine, she whispered. But there was the truth behind the truth. She wanted control. She wanted center stage. She wanted a holiday where she didn't have to compete with the woman who raised her husband, who knew him before she did, who still had a place in his heart she could never replace. And you thought removing me would give you that? I asked. She looked away. I stepped aside. Come in. Her relief was visible. She thought she was forgiven. She walked into my home, the warmth enveloping her like an embrace she didn't deserve. I shut the door gently, deliberately, letting the soft click echo. I gestured to the sofa. Sit. She obeyed like a child. I sat across from her, slowly, carefully, because power comes from pace, not speed. Lydia, I began, my son may not see what you're doing. My grandchildren may not understand. But I do. He stiffened. And I want you to know something. I am old, yes. My back hurts. My knees creak. But my mind. I tapped my temple. Sharp. Very sharp. He swallowed. You excluded me, I continued. So I have decided going forward I will return the favor. Her eyes widened. Mom, what do you mean? I mean, I said slowly, savoring her dread, that you may have the version of Christmas you wanted. But you will not have me in a single part of your life you don't explicitly earn. Please. You will no longer receive the babysitting you depend on. The gifts I give your children every year? Done. The financial help you quietly accept? Gone. I leaned forward. And when this family asks why, oh Lydia, I will tell them the truth. Every word of it. Her breath caught. You'll destroy me, she whispered. No, I said calmly. I'll simply uncover you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I made a mistake, she whispered. Please, don't do this. I stood up slowly, letting her look up at me from below, the place she had tried to put me in. You wanted a Christmas without me, I said. Congratulations. You're getting far more than that. She covered her face, sobbing. And Lydia? I added gently. She looked up, eyes swollen. You should have thought about this before you declared war on a woman who has nothing left to lose. Her face broke. I opened the front door. Goodbye. She stumbled out, shattered. I closed the door behind her, softly, without triumph, but with certainty. That night I sat by my tree again. But this time it didn't feel like defiance. It felt like reclamation. I brewed myself tea. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. I watched the snow fall as though the world was wiping itself clean. Some battles are won loudly. But the ones that change lives, those are won in quiet rooms with calm voices and a steady hand. They left me out of Christmas. But I left Lydia out of the rest of my life. And that, I realized, was the best gift I could have given myself. If this story gripped you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional, suspense-filled family dramas. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on? And stay tuned, because more shocking betrayals and unforgettable revenge stories are coming soon.